Welcome to this explainer. Let's just dive right into it because today we are completely demystifying a financial tool that literally eliminates decades of mortgage payments for high-earning professionals. Let me ask you this. What if you could shave 20 years off your mortgage and save hundreds of thousands of dollars without changing your current lifestyle or your spending habits at all? Sounds wild, right? Well, if you've ever felt like your money is just sitting around doing nothing while the bank profits off your home loan, you are in exactly the right place. Today, we're breaking down the mechanics of the all-in-one loan, or the AIO. We're going to look closely at the specific math behind it and uncover why it provides such a massive, almost unfair advantage, especially for self-employed professionals and independent contractors.
Here is our roadmap for today. We'll start by exposing the traditional banking flaw, unlock the AIO solution, dig into the mathematical reality, look at the 1099 cash flow advantage, and wrap up with wealth activation.
Section 1. The traditional banking flaw. So to really grasp why this alternative strategy is so incredibly powerful, we first have to look at the systemic flaw in how practically all of us are taught to manage our money. Think about the traditional banking setup, what our sources call the gray zone. You've got your hard-earned money locked away in a standard checking account on one side and this heavy, rigid 30-year mortgage on the other. Now, this is a massive systemic flaw by design. The bank takes the money sitting in your checking account, pays you virtually nothing for it, and then turns around and lends it out to make a profit. Meanwhile, you're over on the other side paying massive amounts of amortized interest on your home. It's a structure built entirely to keep your wealth stagnant while enriching the institution. But by stepping out of that gray zone and changing the directional flow of your money into the orange zone, your cash flow can actually work for you every single day in what's known as a simple interest vacuum.
The absolutely crucial point here is eliminating what's called the math gap. You are essentially letting the bank borrow your money for free, only for them to turn around and charge you 6% or more to borrow it back for your house. It makes absolutely zero sense to let your cash sit idly in a checking account earning near 0% while you bleed interest daily on your home loan. You're basically losing from both ends of the equation, getting squeezed by a system that desperately relies on your money remaining idle and separate from your debt.
Section 2. Unlocking the AIO solution.
So, how do we fix this? Well, the AIO fundamentally changes the rules of the game by combining your banking and your borrowing into one powerful mechanism. Think of it this way. Instead of having two separate accounts, the AIO is a 30-year first lien home equity line of credit, or HELOC, paired directly with an integrated zero-balance sweep checking account. Imagine your paycheck hits your account on a Friday afternoon. It doesn't just sit there waiting for you to pay bills next week. The very next minute, those funds automatically sweep to lower your massive loan principal. Because the AIO calculates interest nightly based on the remaining principal balance, every single dollar that sits in the account, even for just 24 hours, cancels the bank's ability to charge interest on that portion of the balance. Yet, and this is the absolute key to the whole strategy, the funds remain 24/7 liquid for you to pay your regular bills and expenses. You use your money to crush your principal daily, but you literally never lose access to it. And that continuous liquidity? It is a total game changer. Picture a scenario where your roof suddenly collapses, or maybe an incredible, time-sensitive investment opportunity pops up. Under a traditional 30-year fixed mortgage, your wealth is trapped inside the physical walls of your house. To get it, you have to spend 30 to 45 days begging a bank for permission to access your own equity through a refinance or a loan, and they might even say no. But with the AIO strategy, you have total standby liquidity. Because it functions as a line of credit, your equity is available 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. You just write a check or use your debit card. You are the one in complete control of your capital, not the bank.
Section 3. The mathematical reality.
Okay, the mechanics sound great in theory, but let's dive into the actual numbers drawn straight from our sources, because they prove exactly how dramatically this accelerates your payoff times. Let's look at how universal this math really is. Say you buy a $400,000 house, and you have a rather modest $2,000 left over at the end of the month after all your expenses. In the traditional banking system, that extra $2,000 just sits in checking, doing absolutely nothing for your net worth. But run it through the AIO's daily principal paydown, and that exact same $400,000 loan is paid off in 9.2 years. You save $309,000 in interest. Now, what if you're a massive high earner? A $2.3 million property with a high performer's $20,000 monthly surplus pays off in an astonishing 5.9 years. The savings there, nearly $2 million. The math scales perfectly to shave decades off your debt, completely regardless of the loan size. Let's break down a specific $1.2 million decision to really cement how this simple interest vacuum works in practice. So here, we are looking at a household bringing in $18,000 a month with $12,000 in expenses. That leaves a very steady $6,000 monthly surplus. On a traditional 30-year fixed mortgage, because of how heavily front-loaded amortized interest is, this household would pay over $1.1 million in interest alone over 3 decades. Let that sink in. But by running that exact same $6,000 surplus through the AIO, the interest cost drops to just $278,000. They completely eliminate over $833,000 in unnecessary interest, and they own the home free and clear in just 8.8 years. That is an $833,000 swing purely based on where you park your money at night.
And for our massive high performers, the velocity is just mind-blowing. In the $2.3 million case study, we have a profile making $40,000 a month and spending $20,000. That $20,000 monthly cash surplus acts as an absolute principal-destroying weapon. By parking that cash flow in the AIO, the total interest paid drops from $2.3 million on the traditional 30-year path down to just $354,000. That is $1.99 million saved. And honestly, the most impressive part? A multi-million-dollar estate is completely owned free and clear in under 6 years. The sheer speed of wealth retention here is just unparalleled.
Now, you might understandably be wondering about the interest rates on a product like this. Isn't the rate higher? Well, here is the secret. The standard bank rate doesn't actually matter if the principal is vanishing. Because your principal is shrinking daily, the actual dollar amount of interest you're charged shrinks right alongside it. In that last high-performer scenario, the effective APR, meaning the true mathematical cost of the money over the life of the loan, plummets to a staggering 1.2%. At that level of aggressive principal reduction, worrying about a standard 6.5% bank rate becomes entirely irrelevant to your reality because you simply aren't holding the debt long enough for it to compound against you.
Section 4. The 1099 Cash Flow Advantage.
I want to pivot for a second and talk directly to our independent contractors, freelancers, and self-employed viewers. We know a major pain point for you is that traditional banks usually make it incredibly difficult to qualify for prime lending products. It often feels like you are penalized for being an entrepreneur. But our sources outline exactly how lenders actively work with self-employed profiles to grant access to this specific tool. Lenders utilize your 1099 NEC or 1099 MISC forms to substantiate your gross payments. They also regularly accept verification letters from your CPA or accountant to confirm your business is operational and to smoothly explain any unusual income fluctuations. As long as you maintain positive cash flow and have a minimum 760 FICO score, you can actually qualify for the maximum leverage of putting just 10% down. This is a massive, massive triumph for the self-employed who usually get locked out of elite financial instruments like this. But right here is where the absolute magic happens for 1099 earners. We call this the 1099 hack, and it perfectly leverages the unpredictable cash flow of freelance work. Imagine you land a massive contract and receive a $30,000 check in January. You know perfectly well that you're going to owe the IRS about $10,000 of that when April rolls around. Normally, that 10 grand just sits completely dead in a business checking account for 3 months, waiting to be taxed. But with the AIO, you park that gross, pre-tax money into your account immediately. For 3 solid months, that $10,000 is actively suppressing your daily mortgage interest charge. You are literally using money earmarked for the IRS to cancel out interest owed to the bank, right up until the exact day you write the check for your taxes. Every single pre-tax dollar works for you before it ever goes to the government.
Section 5. Beyond payoff, wealth activation.
So, paying off your home fast is fantastic, but the ultimate goal of the AIO isn't just debt destruction, it is what comes next. Let's look at the pivot to wealth. Let's go back to our $1.2 million home scenario from earlier. The exact moment your home is paid off at year 8.8, you take what used to be your traditional principal and interest payment, in this case about $5,700 a month, and you immediately redirect it into a compounding asset like an S&P 500 index fund. By year 30, instead of just finally celebrating the end of your mortgage the traditional way, you have a fully paid off home and over $5 million in liquid wealth. This $5 million isn't magic. It is simply the money you would have handed over to the bank, redirected into your own pockets to compound for the next 21 years.
The mathematical reality we've explored today shows unequivocally that traditional banking traps your wealth while the AIO structure unleashes it. By stepping out of that gray zone and utilizing a simple interest vacuum, you take back control of your own cash flow and you stop enriching the institutions that rely on your money staying idle. So the question I want to leave you with is this. If you apply these principles to completely eliminate your mortgage decades early, what incredible things will you build with your newfound time and capital?